Well, happy Easter, everybody. How you feeling? You good? All right. Well, my name is Kent. I'm lead pastor here at Epic. And whether you are at Roxborough High School, at our Roxborough location, or over at our Center City location at Suzanne Roberts, or at our Fairmount location, the Franklin Learning Center, here at Parkside, at the School of the Future, or whether you're watching online, I just want you to know that I'm so glad that you've decided to celebrate Easter with us today. Big deal, big deal. Easter Sunday is my favorite Sunday of the year, and rightfully so. This is like the Super Bowl of church. It's a big deal. It's awesome. And I want you to think about this. This is amazing just to think about. Today, I don't know if you know this, but today, all around the world, an estimated 2 billion people in cities and in towns and in villages will wake up and go to some kind of a gathering place. Whether that be a church or a theater or a high school or a mud hut, or maybe even something as simple as gathering around a tree in the middle of a field. And those 2 billion people will gather in celebration of a particular event in history that changed the whole world for forever. And so I say all that to say this. Of all the days that you could have picked to be at church, you picked a really good one. So give yourself a hand. All of our locations, way to go. That's awesome. Now, before we talk about why this is a really good day to be at church, I want to tell you about another really good day to be at church. And it just so happens to be next Sunday. Next Sunday, all right? 2 reasons why you need to be at church next Sunday. Number one, it will impress your parents. I promise you. They will be amazed that you went to church 2 weeks in a row, right? Big deal that you went on Easter, even bigger deal that you went 2 weeks in a row. Mind blown. Do that. Impress your parents. Make your grandma be like, what's up with that, okay? Number two, second reason why you should be here next week, we're starting a brand new series called Address the Mess. Address the Mess. And I don't know if you know this, but life is messy. Come on, somebody. Yeah? Life is messy. It just is. And we've all made a mess. We have all been a mess. We all are a mess sometimes, and the truth is we're all one step away from being a mess at any given moment. But believe it or not, that's actually a good thing. And you're going to have to be here next week to find out why. So make sure you're here. You'll be so glad you did. All right? Now back to today. All right, hey, to start us off, I want to ask you a question. Think about this. What do you wonder? What do you wonder? Just think about it to yourself for a moment. You see, we wonder all kinds of things. We wonder about our future. We wonder about the past. Some of you won't admit it, but one of the things you're wondering right now is if the person you're seated beside is single. Come on, right? Right? No, don't raise your hand. That's weird. You're going to make them wonder if they should find another seat. Don't do that, okay? Not cool. Don't do that. Don't do that, right? We wonder all kinds of things. We wonder who we'll meet. We wonder if we'll get married. We wonder what job we'll have one day. We wonder what our kids are going to be like. We wonder what their future is going to be like. Some of you are at a stage in life where you're wondering when your children are ever going to give you some grandchildren, right? In fact, you actually have it planned to bring that up later today at lunch. Again. Because they didn't hear you the first 15 times, and you're like, I need a grandbaby. So, good luck. We wonder all kinds of things. We wonder about life. Like, is this all there is? Am I doing it right? Could I be doing it better? We wonder why others are the way they are and if they'll ever change. We wonder why we are the way we are and if we'll ever change. Some of us, the biggest thing you're wondering right now is if this winter is ever going to end. Come on, who's with me? Right? You know they're calling for snow on Monday? That is the devil, is what that is. Not okay. Over that, just saying, right? If you believe in God, you might actually wonder some things about heaven, right? Like, are you going to see the people that you've loved and lost? Are you going to see those people? And when you see them, are they going to be like the younger version of themselves or the older version of themselves? Like, you ever wonder that? Like, is grandpa going to look like grandpa? Or is grandpa going to be like, wow, you're handsome. Like, how did that happen, right? Like, I don't know exactly how that works, But even if you don't believe in God, If you've lost someone that you've loved who's close to you, you can't help but wonder if there maybe is something on the other side of things. We wonder all kinds of stuff. Some of us wonder where we came from. Others of us wonder where we're going. Others of us wonder how we got here. For some of you, because of what you had going on last night, that's like a legit current event for you. You're wondering how you got here. Like the last thing you remember was we're all singing karaoke, and now you're at church, and you're like, I don't know how I got here, but I'm here. You know, we wonder all kinds of things. Some of you are starting to wonder how long I'm going to talk about what we wonder about. Others of you have already checked your watch and you're wondering how long this sermon's going to take. And listen. If that's you, then you've obviously never been to a black church. Because let me tell you what they're doing at black church right now. They're still singing. Yeah. Not only are they still singing, they're still singing the first song. Yeah, there's still 5 more songs, 3 offerings, a step team. And that's all before the sermon even starts, so don't look at me sideways. Like, got places to be, Kent. And don't get me wrong, I love black church, but I also love lunch. I need to stay on schedule. I would like my lunch to be around lunchtime. That is my promise to you as a pastor. We will always do that. Now that said, I will always choose black church over white church, right? For one simple reason. If I wanted to sleep, I could have just stayed home. White church is so boring, isn't it? That's why I love what we do. It's like the best of both worlds. White church is bad, man. The sermon at white church is 15 minutes. But it's the longest 15 minutes ever. You're like, oh my gosh. Someone taser that man. Please don't ever taser me. That would be the worst, right? Some of you are starting to wonder if it's okay that we're making fun of church at church on Easter. To that, I would say, yeah, maybe. Probably not. Let's move on. Now, Easter brings with it a lot of wonders of its own. Now, I don't know if you know this, but Easter is not about peeps and pastels. It's not even about church or Christianity. See, Easter is about a man who claimed that he came from God, but then proved it by dying and then 3 days later coming back from the dead. That's what Easter's about. We call it the resurrection. It's the resurrection. A man died, and then 3 days later he came back from the dead. Now, in a room this size, and considering our other locations and the sizes of those rooms, surely the truth is we're all over the map when it comes to what we believe about that. Like, all of us are at different places. It's just true. Some of you would say this. Some of you would say that the best way to describe you as it relates to what you think about the resurrection would be that you believe, but you wonder. Like, you believe, but you wonder. Isn't that true? You believe but sometimes you find yourself in a place where you wonder. You're like, is this really for real? Like, can this really be true? Like, did this really happen? Is there more to life than just this life? And is following Jesus really that important of a part of it? You'd say, yeah, you believe, but sometimes you wonder. Others of you would say that it would best describe you to say that you wonder how anyone could believe. Like, you're thinking to yourself, man, like, how can any thinking person believe that someone died and then 3 days later came back from the dead? Because usually when people die, they stay that way. And so you're here because, I don't know, maybe someone brought you. I don't know, maybe you're here because someone bribed you, which, by the way, is a totally acceptable way for them to bring you to church. I'm just saying that is Jesus approved, so that's okay. But you're here for whatever reason, and you're sitting there, you're like, okay, I'll make it through the spiel, but you're thinking to yourself, I wonder how anyone ever could believe. And then there's those of you that would say that you wonder if you could ever believe again. And I don't know, maybe you grew up in church, right? You went to camp, you walked down front, you got baptized, you sang in the Christmas choir, you were an altar boy, but then you got older, and at some point, life happened. And all of a sudden, it's like the faith of your childhood just couldn't stand up to the experiences that you were now having as an adult. And you had questions, like legitimate questions about things, but people weren't giving you real answers. Instead, they were just kind of giving you these Sunday school answers that seemed so inadequate. And so over time, you just kind of find yourself at a place where you just kind of lost your faith. And now you're sitting here on Easter Sunday because that's what your family does on Easter Sunday. You go to church. Like, it's like I'm American and I go to church on Easter Sunday, But the thing that you wonder is if you could ever really believe again. And man, if any of those describe you, if any of that would categorize you, then I want you to know that, one, I'm so glad you're here. And two, I want you to know that this is a safe place for you to be able to wonder about any and or all of those things for as long as you need to wonder about them. We just want to see how we can help. Today, I want to read through the Easter story. And my prayer is that God would meet you at the point of your wonder. And maybe he'd use this to help take you another step in his direction. So here we go, Luke chapter 24, starting in verse number 1. Here's what the scripture says. It says, "But very early on Sunday morning, the women went to the tomb, taking the spices that they had prepared." Now, I think this is so interesting that these women brought along the spices that they had prepared. Now, these spices were used in preparing a body for a burial. And earlier, we discover that Jesus' body was already prepared for the burial. It was prepared by Joseph and Nicodemus, right? And so you read this and you're like, well, why in the world would these women bring along all the spices that they needed to prepare a body for burial if two men had already done it? Now, ladies, if you think about it, it does make sense. Because if two men had already done it, it probably needed to be redone. And so the ladies are like, all right, Joseph, Nicodemus, we got you. We'll make sure this is going to be all right. And so they show up at the tomb, and when they show up at the tomb, here's what the scripture says. It says that they found that the stone had been rolled away from the entrance. Now, there were rumors going around at the time that Jesus had said that he would be resurrected, that 3 days later he would come back from the dead. And even though he said that, no one believed it. No one actually thought that was really going to happen. Instead, what they thought might happen was that some of Jesus' followers would maybe sneak over to the tomb and roll the stone back and steal the body so that everybody would believe that Jesus' body was resurrected. And so to prevent this, the Romans at the time, they sent some Roman soldiers to stand guard over the tomb. And these Roman soldiers, they had one job: keep the tomb closed. That's it. One job. It did not go well. They did not do their one job because even these skilled Roman soldiers somehow couldn't keep the tomb from being opened. Now, look what happens next, starting verse 3. And so they went in. So these women, they go into the tomb, but they didn't find the body of the Lord Jesus. And it says that they stood there puzzled. Now, the reason that they're standing in this empty tomb and they're standing there puzzled is because whenever Jesus died, they expected him to stay that way. They expected him to stay dead. And so they had to be thinking to themselves, you know what, hey, I know he didn't resurrect, all right? That probably didn't happen. So maybe someone stole him. And so they're worried, they're upset. They're like, oh my gosh, someone done stole Jesus. Like they came and they stole Jesus. Jesus, what we gonna do, Jesus? It's like kind of a statement and a prayer all at the same time. Is a weird, I wasn't there, but I bet that's what happened. Look what happens next. As they stood there puzzled, two men suddenly appeared to them, clothed in dazzling robes, which I just kind of find funny. Verse 5. The women were terrified, and they bowed with their faces to the ground. And so all of a sudden, these two very fashionable angels suddenly appear in the tomb with these women. Like, doo-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo. That's freaky stuff right there. Right, you're in the tomb, it's just you guys, all of a sudden, poof, two guys in robes. You're like, no, I gotta go. Right, that's when you exit, that's when you leave. Well, they didn't. They fell on their faces, which is probably what you really would do because you're frightened, you're terrified, right? These guys just show up out of nowhere. And then the men, these two angels, they asked them a question. Here's the question. Why are you looking among the dead for someone who is alive? What kind of question is that to ask? Why are you looking among the dead for someone who is alive? They had to be thinking, we're not. We weren't looking among the dead for someone who is alive. We were looking among the dead for someone that we thought was dead. Last time we checked, that was true. Jesus. But, apparently, when two angels in fashionable robes show up and start asking you questions, you don't talk back. And so they didn't. Verse 6, look what the angel said. He isn't here. He is risen from the dead. Now, I think this is funny because this is so Jesus. This is so Jesus. Jesus was so uncooperative when he was alive. Like, he never did things the way that things were supposed to be done. He walked on water. He slept in the bottom of the boat during stormy seas. He spit on a guy's eyes when he healed him from being blind. He healed people on the Sabbath, which was a no-no. He answered people's questions with questions. One time they were like, hey, we got this question for you. And they were trying to trick him. And Jesus says, okay, but first I have a question for you. And it's a question they couldn't really answer. And then he was like, look, if you can't answer my question, I'm not answering yours. That was Jesus. Jesus touched lepers who were considered to be unclean. Jesus hung out with the non-religious types, like the prostitutes and the tax collectors and the sinners. Jesus invited outsiders to be part of his inner circle. Jesus was always just kind of contrary that way. And so you'd think that with all that going on, Jesus would at least do death right. Because dead people do dead right. You know what I'm saying? Like, you might not do much right in your whole life, but I promise you're going to do dead right. Like, nailed it. Like, you were. It's true. But not Jesus. Jesus is like, no. I do not play nice. I'm going to do this my way. The angels go on to tell us exactly what Jesus' plan was. Look what he said. They said to the women, they said, remember what he told us back in Galilee, or told you back in Galilee, that the Son of Man, which is speaking of Jesus, must be betrayed into the hands of sinful men, right? Men who would falsely accuse him. Look at the detail here. That he would be crucified. Jesus said, I will be crucified, like the method of death. And then he said, and then I would rise again on the third day. He even predicts the timing of this whole thing. Like, this essentially was like getting up to the plate to bat and calling your shot. Just saying, just FYI, I'm about to hit a home run. And then he does it. Jesus calls his shot. And so he says, don't you remember? Don't you remember what Jesus told you? That this exactly was what was going to happen? Don't you remember? On the third day he'd raise again? And look what they said next, verse 8. Then they remembered that he had said this. That's funny because it reminds me of my kids. Like, this is the relationship I have with my kids. Didn't I tell you? Like, to never or to always, and then look back and they go, no. Then I think about it, and I'm like, maybe wait a minute. And I start to remember stuff like exactly the conversation we had, and exactly where we were, and exactly what I said. And I'm like, no, we were right here, we said this. And then all of a sudden they go, oh, when you said that. And I'm like, what do you mean, oh, when I said that? I think that's a little bit what's going on here, you know? They're like, oh, when he said that. Verse 9. So here's what they did. The women got together and says that they rushed back from the tomb to tell his 11 disciples and everyone else what had happened. Let's skip to verse 11. It says this, so they say, here's what happened. These guys with robes, and the tomb was open, and they said this, and remember that Jesus said he was risen, and all this kind of stuff. And then here's what happened. They tell the story to the men, and in true man fashion. But the story sounded like nonsense to the men, and so they did not believe it. They were like, women. They probably drove to the wrong tomb. It's just like those women. Pretty sure he's in there. And the women are like, you guys are idiots. Not much has changed. Verse 12, Peter's like, I'll go. I know where the right tomb is. However, Peter jumped up and he ran to the tomb to look. Stooping, he peered in and he saw the empty linen wrappings. So this was the cloths that they had wrapped Jesus' body in. He saw that they were laying there in the tomb, but there was no body. And then look what it says next. And then he went home again, wondering what had happened. Wondering what had happened. I think it's an interesting choice of words there, right? But they were wondering what had happened. And not only that, not only was it just Peter, I mean, everybody was wondering what had happened. In fact, not only were they wondering what had happened with this, but they had been wondering what was happening, wondering what was going on. Like, they wondered what was happening whenever Jesus got arrested. Jesus wasn't supposed to get arrested. He's Jesus, right? He could just be like, no, I'm not getting arrested because I'm Jesus. What? They were wondering what was happening whenever he allowed himself to be arrested. They wondered why he didn't fight back whenever they began to beat him. They were wondering what was happening whenever he was being nailed to the cross. They wondered why he was waiting to do a miracle that would deliver him from these people who were crucifying him. What was he waiting for? They were wondering, why is it that he's not defending himself? And why is it that he's not defeating his enemies and taking his rightful place as the King of Kings? He's the Son of God. Surely he could say in a moment, in a breath, angels to come and rescue him, and they would. Why isn't he doing that? They wondered. And amidst all these wonders, all these thoughts, all these questions that they had about why things were happening the way that they were happening, something even more worse happens. He died. And then they really started to wonder. They wondered if everything that they'd believed up to this point had all been a lie. They wondered if Jesus really was who he said he was, or if it was all a sham. They wondered if they had been taken for a ride by one who was not so divine after all. They wondered, most of all, what now? Like, what's going to happen to us now? What's going to happen to me now? What's going to happen for my future? Like, I was banking on this. This is not going according to my plan. And what you discover here in the scripture is that all of a sudden their wonder, it turned into wander. And one by one, the disciples, the apostles, the followers of Jesus, they all abandoned Jesus. And they all abandoned their faith. You know, sometimes that's what happens. I think we all could look back in our life and identify a moment when our wonders turned into wander. You know what I'm saying? Like, things didn't go like you thought that they would. A relationship didn't go like you thought that it should. Like, all of a sudden he decided he just didn't want to be married anymore. What? All of a sudden she moved on with no real explanation. Your career doesn't go like you thought it would or like you thought it should, and you don't get accepted into the program that you think you deserved, or you don't get the promotion that you worked so hard to get, someone else gets it. Life doesn't work out like you hoped it would. You thought you'd be further along by now, but you're just not. Health isn't going like you thought it could for you or maybe for your family, like your dad gets sick and he's not getting any better. What's that all about? And all of a sudden you have all these wonders that begin to pop up. Because life and your experience is just not measuring up to the faith of your childhood. And you're like, what do I do with all this? And it just doesn't fit neatly into any of these boxes. And your wondering starts taking you places. You start to wonder, is everything I've always believed a lie? You wonder, is God really as great and as good as he claimed to be? You wonder, have I been taken for a ride by someone who's not so divine after all? You know? If you're not careful, if I'm not careful, my wonder can turn into wander. For some of you, your wonder has caused you to wander down roads that you wish you never would have traveled. For others of you, it's taking you to places that you wish you never would have gone. For some, it's led you to making decisions that you wish you could go back more than anything else and unmake, but you can't. And here's what I want you to know. If that's your story, you're in good company, because that's my story too. You are not alone. We've all made turns that we're not proud of. We'd all go down roads that we wish we hadn't have gone down. Every single one of us has done that. The good news, at least what I'm learning, is that when you and I lose our way, God just has a way of meeting us right where we are and revealing himself to us in a way that only he could. He just does that. In fact, that's exactly what he does in the passage. A few verses later, here's what happens. All the disciples, all the apostles, all these followers of Jesus, they all had some wonders that led to some wandering, and they've wandered off, wandered away from faith, wandered away from God, wandered away from Jesus. They've abandoned their faith, and then Jesus shows up. I love this. It's Luke chapter 24, verse 36. It says this, and just as they were telling about it, Jesus himself was suddenly standing there among them. He just, poof, what's up? Like they've wandered away, and then all of a sudden, poof, I'm here. Come on, you ever been there? You ever wandered away and it's like, poof, I'm here? You're like, seriously? Like, are you chasing me? Like, what's that about? Like, that person said that thing and that was a little bit too weird, or cross paths with that person. They said they just wanted to pray with me. I was like, I don't really want them to, but then they did, and I was like, I'm kind of glad they did. And like, you wandered, but somehow God just has a way of meeting you right where you are. Over, over, and over again. So Jesus just shows up. They've abandoned their faith. Jesus shows up. He goes, peace be with you, he said. He's like, sup, I'm back. Verse 37, but the whole group was startled and frightened, thinking that they were seeing a ghost. Why are you frightened? Jesus asked. Why are your hearts filled with doubt? And they're like, because we think you might be a ghost. Hey, there's some poltergeist stuff going on. We're a little freaked out right now, okay? You just appeared, right? You got to like warn a brother. You can't just do that. Verse 39, Jesus said, look at my hands. Look at my feet. I think he was saying, hey, it's me. And I think he was saying, not only is it me, but look what I've done for you. Like, look, I gave my life for you. Like, I paid the price and the penalty of sin for you so that you could be reunited with your Heavenly Father for forever. Like, I did that for you. Now, so not only is it me, hey, it's me, but look what I've done. Like, I've loved you with an uncommon love. And I've loved you in an incredible way. Look what I've done. He says, look at my hands, look at my feet. You can see that it's really me. Touch me. And make sure that I am not a ghost, because ghosts don't have bodies. Thank you, Jesus. as you see that I do. As he spoke, he showed them his hands, and he showed them his feet. And then verse 41, I love this verse. Still they stood there in disbelief or amazed, filled with joy and with, what's the word? Wonder. Now this is a different kind of wonder. Like this isn't a I'm curious kind of wonder. This isn't a I wonder if Jesus is who he says he is. I wonder if God is good or if God is great. This isn't like I'm curious. This is a like I'm in awe kind of wonder. Like I'm standing in wonder. I'm standing in admiration. I'm standing in amazement. I'm standing in awe of who Jesus is and in wonder of how great God is and of how good he is. I'm astonished by this. I'm overwhelmed by this. I'm amazed by how incredible he is. And what we see in this passage is that with one encounter with Jesus, these followers who had wandered away went from wonder to wonder. Like they went from all their questions and all their doubts and all their concerns and all their worries, all their confusion, to, wow. You are who you said you are. You can do what you said you can do. You are great. You are good. You are faithful. They went from wonder to wonder. Look at me. I might not know you, but that's what I want for you. More than anything else, that's what I want for you. Like if you believe, but sometimes you wonder, or if you wonder how anyone could believe, or if you wonder if you could ever believe again, man, I want more than anything for you, that you would have a moment like that with God, where he takes you from wondering to wondering. From all your questions and your doubts to real wonder, to real amazement, to utter confidence in who God is, because something happened that brought you to the place where you were finally able to wipe away the fog of doubt and see God for who he really is. A moment like that changes everything. It changed everything for these early followers of Jesus, so much so they spent the rest of their life telling everybody they could about this moment. They didn't tell them about the things that Jesus taught. They didn't tell other people even about the miracles that he did. You know what they told them? They told them about the moment when they went from wonder to wonder. They told him about the moment when they went from, oh, I don't know if, to, oh, he is. And he loved me like that. And he's got plans for my life. And he's with me no matter what. Are you serious? And God brought me through that thing, and God's been with me and been faithful through all this stuff. And oh my gosh, and look. And I went from will he to, oh, he does. He does. It didn't just happen for them. It happened also. I think this is fast. This is probably the strongest, one of the strongest evidences that we have for the resurrection is that many of the Pharisees, which were the religious elite of the day, the group of people that had Jesus killed, many of the Pharisees became followers of Jesus. Think about that. Like the people who had Jesus killed became followers of Jesus. Like how is that even possible? Right? It wasn't because of what he taught, because they heard the things he taught and they still had him killed. And it wasn't because of the miracles that he did, because they saw the stuff that he did and they still had him killed. What on earth could have possibly happened to get them to completely change their mind about who Jesus was? I don't know. Maybe they saw him die, and then all of a sudden, he was like, "Sup, I'm back." And they were like, "Oops. You are who you say you are." I mean, think about that. It's an amazing thought. Listen, things can be tough sometimes because life just doesn't always go as planned. You remember the moment when you realized that life isn't always going to go as planned, you know? Maybe for you it was a diagnosis, maybe for you it was a pink slip, maybe for you it was a broken relationship or divorce papers. right? Like you had a perfect plan, perfect house, perfect spouse, perfect this, perfect that, but then things just didn't work out. Truth is, life doesn't go as planned. If you don't believe that, go home, look at your high school picture, then look in the mirror. It's true. It's frightening. Like somewhere around 25, something happens. All of a sudden, your weight starts to move from the poles of your body to your equator. All of a sudden, hair that was never there before boldly goes where no hair has gone before. And you're like, what is that about, you know? Life doesn't go as planned. The Easter story, you know what it does? It reminds us that when life doesn't go as planned, when God's not doing what you thought he would do or should do, knew he could do, that in the midst of all that, God can still do things that no one else can. That when things aren't going as planned, God is still at work, even in your darkest moments of life. When it seems like he's fallen asleep at the wheel, he hasn't. When you're overwhelmed by all kinds of uncertainty, you can have the confidence of knowing because of the resurrection that God is not uncertain. No, he's at work. He's got a plan. He's got this. You've got to trust him. Proverbs 3, 5, and 6, I love this verse. It says, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not to your own understanding, your own way of seeing, this is how this should go, or this is what should happen next. In all your ways, submit to him, and he'll make your path straight. And I love asking this question. Aren't you tired of walking down crooked paths? For some of you, your wondering has led to wandering. Aren't you tired of walking down crooked paths? You know what we believe around here? We believe that everything's better when God's at the center of it. Your career's better when God's at the center. Your relationships are better when God's at the center. Your dreams are better when God's at the center. Your future's better. Your eternity's better when God's at the center. Your life is better. You are better when God's at the center of you. And man, there's so many people in this room, there's so many people at other locations this morning who would say that they can remember the day that they discovered that for themselves, that everything's just better when God's at the center of it. They can remember the day that they finally stopped long enough to allow God to go to work in their life. And then they found themselves at that place where they went from wonder, is he good? Is he real? Can he help? Is he at work? To beginning to recognize the thumbprint of God in their life. And they went from wondering to wondering to wondering. That's why we get so jazzed about Easter, because we've really got something to celebrate. Listen, the resurrection is the thing that forces us to take Jesus seriously, right? Without the resurrection, he was just another good guy who had some good stuff to say. But because of the resurrection, it makes us go, oh man, he's from God. Like when someone dies and comes back from the dead, you got to believe what that guy says. You go, oh, he's probably right, It's a pretty cool party trick there. And so you got to believe that what God says about eternity and life and sin and how to be forgiven and all that stuff is true. And so in a nutshell, here it is. You and I need Jesus to be the forgiver of our sin. It's true. That's a job that's too big for us. We can't do it on our own. And number two, we need Jesus to be the leader of our life. Again, he's more qualified than you are and than I am. The good news is that he is more than willing, more than able to do and be both of those things any moment you're ready to step across the line of faith and ask. Any moment. That's the good news. So here's what I want to do. All of our locations, all together. I just want to pray a prayer. I want to ask you to pray along with me. And I would hope that we do so in support of those that are stepping across the line of faith to pray it for the first time or to pray it again after doing some wandering. So let's pray together. Repeat after me. Say, Jesus, I thank you so much that you love me. I thank you that you meet me where I'm at. and that you love me enough not to leave me there. Thank you for being the forgiver of my sin. And God, I ask you to be the leader of my life. God, help me to find a new life in following you. And help me to live the rest of my days doing the very best I can to love you the way that you have always loved me. In Jesus' name, amen. Come on, let's give it up.